taking the time this Friday to be here with us as we continue with the Cal-OAR training series. As many of you know, this is the fourth in our Cal-OAR webinar series, the Cal-OAR demographic data elements. During today's training, please type any questions into the chat box, and we'll address questions at the end of the training as time allows. I'm Juliana Vinilats, and I'm the Cal-OAR specialist here at CDSS, and I am joined today by...
Good morning, everybody. Michael Billingsley, CalWorks data analyst.
Great. In addition to Michael and I, we also have folks on the call from each of the consortia to help with any specific questions that arise during today's training. Now let's take a quick look at today's training agenda. So today we're going to continue with some of the more detailed and technical aspects of the Cal-OAR performance measure. Apologies for that. By the end of the presentation, our goal is that you'll be able to describe the demographic data elements that will be used in the Cal-OAR performance measures and demonstrate which SAWS data fields are used for each demographic data point. We'll accomplish this by providing an overview of each demographic data element and review of the CalWIN, LRS, and C4 screens that will be used to obtain the information. We also just want to quickly recognize that we know that all of you are really the experts on the consortia systems, and today's training is just to provide you with the roadmap to the relevant data. As we embark on the performance measure focused trainings, it's important to pause and consider the measures within the overall Cal-OAR context. Cal-OAR is really a continuous quality improvement process, and the measures are only one piece of the puzzle. The measures themselves and the data side is not Cal-OAR. They will help inform and guide analysis in the county self-assessment, and they'll assist in areas and identifying areas for improvement and innovation in the system improvement plan. So guidance and training around those pieces, the continuous quality improvement, will follow this upfront focus on the performance measures. So with that said, while the measures themselves are not Cal-OAR, the measures will provide new and important information about our CalWorks program. Just as a reminder, each webinar recording as well as associated materials will be posted on the Cal-OAR website within several weeks of the conclusion of the webinar. And the PowerPoint presentation is currently up on the Cal-OAR website. It was also attached to the meeting notice for today. So if you prefer to have a hard copy in front of you to follow along or write notes on, you have that as an option. So just to kind of frame where we are today in the overall context of training, this is the next step in a series of trainings to help prepare and support you all to engage effectively within Cal-OAR. We started with the Cal-OAR 101 and the Cal-OAR data overview sessions, where we provided conceptual overviews designed to help establish a shared knowledge and understanding and awareness of Cal-OAR and lay the groundwork for today's and future trainings. We split the performance measure trainings into 4 parts. The first in the measure series contained information on the Phase 1 measures. Today's training will look at the demographic data elements that are used throughout the measures. The existing reporting measures training will take place on August 6th and 8th and include those measures that utilize EDD and MEDS as their data source. Finally, we'll conclude the performance measure series in 2020 when we go over the Phase 2 measures. We're also planning a data quality assurance, quality control session, as well as a demo of the Cal-OAR data dashboard, which hopefully you all have had an opportunity to peruse. So today we'll be discussing the demographic data variables that you see on your screen. That's the case number, the client ID number or SIN, the MEDS primary aid code, the non-MOE aid code reason, date of birth, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, race and or ethnicity, spoken language, welfare to work program status, single parent AU type, program entry date, and program exit date. These data variables are used throughout the Cal-OAR performance measures, and gives us information needed to look at the measures by certain populations of interest, such as by a breakout of age or those with young children. The data will also give CDSS the ability to combine SAWS data with data coming from other sources, such as EDB. So for the purposes of today's training, we've organized the data elements into 3 categories. System generated. These are the data elements automatically generated by SAWS that require no specific action by the caseworker. They will reflect data caseworkers have entered other places. Individual descriptors. These are client-specific data elements intrinsically related to the person, regardless of enrollment in a certain program. And finally, program-related descriptors. These are descriptors of the individual as it relates to their experience within CalWORks. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Michael, who will take us through the data elements generated by SAWS.
Wow, Juliana, thank you so much for that excellent introduction and framing. So, we're going to start today, as she said, looking at the demographic variables by looking at those that are system generated. So the next couple, case number, client ID number, MEDS primary aid code, and non-MOE MEDS aid code reason are system generated. In other words, the data in these fields are derived from information entered previously on other screens by the caseworker. So for example, a caseworker does not determine a client ID number or even a MEDS aid code. Those are derived from information previously entered. And one little difference about these variables is the non-MOE aid code reason, which is information that is specifically entered by the caseworker, but we included it here because this information helps inform the system-generated MEDS aid code determination. So let's start today by looking at the case number. In CalWIN, the case number is found on the Collect Case Summary Detail page, seen here, where there's a blue bar that runs across the screen labeled Case, and directly below that bar, at the far left of the screen, indicated by the arrow, is where the case number is provided. In LRSC4, the case number information is located at the top left under the case name as shown here. And this screenshot reflects the screen that results from activating the Case Information tab when the case summary option is chosen from the left side option menu, and the case number indicated again by the arrow. Okay, moving on, let's review the Client Identification Number, or CIN. In CalWIN, the Client Identification Number is found here on the Collect Individual Demographic Detail page, where the client ID number cell is indicated by the box and the black arrow. In LRSC4, the client ID number is located on the Individual Demographic Detail screen from the main Eligibility tab when Individual Demographics is selected from the Options menu on the left side column. And the client ID number is at the bottom right-hand side of the page, indicated again by our friend, the red box and the black arrow. Okay, moving on now to the MEDS primary aid code. In CalWIN, the MEDS primary aid code is reported and found in the Display Individual Eligibility Summary screen, seen here. The aid code in the aid code column that refers specifically to the client indicated in the individual column. In C4LRS, the primary MEDS aid code requires EDBC to be run and then saved on a program. Once EDBC is run and saved, the primary MEDS aid code will be determined and viewable here on the case summary page from the Case Info tab selection, indicated by the arrow and the box. Now let's take a look at the non-MOE aid code reason. In CalWIN, the non-MOE aid code is listed, as we saw, on the Display Individual Summary Detail page, where in this example, the K1 aid code assignment is found in the aid code column. The aid code reason is operationalized in CalWin by clicking the Reason button on the far right bottom of the page, here indicated by the red box. Clicking the Reason box in the previous screen brings you to the Display Reasons page shown here, where client case information is found under the, wait for it, blue bar that says Reason. In LRS C4, the reason for the assignment of an age code, for an aid code, is only displayed after EDBC is run on a case and saved. The reason for the aid code assignment would then be displayed on the CalWorks EDBC summary page from the Eligibility tab as seen here. Now with that, we'll go back to our good friend Juliana, and she will talk about the individual descriptors.
Great, thank you, Michael. So now we'll take a look at the data elements that relate to an individual's personal characteristics. This section includes date of birth, client sex, gender, identity, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, and spoken language. First, we have date of birth. In CalWin, the date of birth is found on the Collect Individual Demographic Detail page, seen here, under the section labeled Birth Information. In C4 LRS, the date of birth for an individual is reported here on the Individual Demographics Detail page in the Eligibility tab, with individual demographics chosen from the left side options list. Next, we have client sex. CalWin reports the sex of an individual on the Collect Individual Demographic Detail page in the Name section, right below where the individual's first name is entered. In LRS C4, client sex is found in the box below the gender heading on the Individual Demographics Detail page on the Eligibility tab, when the individual demographic option is chosen on the left. The next two variables relate to the client's gender identity and sexual orientation. So the reason that we're asking for this information when CalOR is to meet the requirements of Assembly Bill 959 and 677. That legislation requires CDSS to request clients self-identify their sexual orientation and gender identity. The CW 2223 form provides clients an opportunity to self-identify. However, it is voluntary and at the client's discretion to provide this information. Therefore, we're aware that this information may not always be available. So starting with gender identity, in CalWin, client gender identity is found on the Collect Individual Demographic Detail page, where there is an input option for birth gender and current gender. Gender identity is reported in the current gender cell. In C4 LRS, gender identity, or the gender that an individual identifies as, is found here, again on the Individual Demographic Detail page in the Eligibility tab, indicated by the red box and the blue or the black arrow. Again, whether or not a client wishes to disclose this information is entirely voluntary. However, if a client wishes to self-identify these characteristics, this is where they are found. Next, we're moving to the client sexual orientation. In CalWin, for client sexual orientation, we return to the Collect Individual Demographic Detail page, and directly below the gender identity input from the previous demographic element, we can find the option for sexual orientation. And again, the disclosure of this information is voluntary. They aren't required to disclose or identify sexual orientation or gender identity. In C4 LRS, client sexual orientation is found on the Individual Demographics Detail page on the Eligibility tab, seen here with the red box and the black arrow. All right, next we have the race ethnicity variables. In CalWIN, client race ethnicity is found on the Collect Individual Demographic Detail page, which we've seen a lot of in today's presentation. The primary race ethnicity is found in the cell labeled ethnicity, the one that is, it has a red box around it. So we just saw that primary race and or ethnicity is found in the cell labeled ethnicity, but when an individual wishes to provide a second race or ethnicity, that is found in the cell directly to the right of that one, the first one, and is labeled race/ethnicity. When an individual provides a third race or ethnicity, the race/ethnicity button is selected on the same screen. You can see that with a red box around it right now. This button directs you to the Collect Race Ethnic Detail page, where the user can choose the appropriate additional race ethnicities for the client from the options listed. So in C4 LRS, the individual's race and or ethnicity is reported on the Individual Demographics Detail page, where options exist for 26 different race ethnicities. Here, as many options as appropriate can be chosen. Moving on to the final data element in this section, spoken language, CalWIN only collects data on one spoken language, and that is found on the Collect Individual Demographic Detail page in the cell indicated by the arrow and the red box. In C4 LRS, the spoken language of the customer is reported on this page, again in the Eligibility tab on the Individual Demographics Detail page. Okay, so moving on, I will hand it back to Michael to take you through our final section of data variables.
Well, thank you, Juliana. And we just want to say thank you to everybody listening in and spending your Friday morning with us going over demographic variables in the consortia system. I'm sure you were up late last night, dizzy with anticipation. So let's move on to the program-related descriptors. And these are the descriptors that describe an individual and how they relate to the program. So it's welfare to work program status, single parent AU type, program entry date, and program exit date. So let's start with welfare to work program status. Welfare to work program status is of the individual, and this is where we will find or determine if someone is welfare to work active, which includes good cause and non-compliance for purposes of CalOR, if someone is sanctioned, or if someone is exempt, including exempt volunteers. And we just want to reiterate that program status is based on the status of the individual on the last day of the reporting period. So, in CalWIN, the welfare to work program status is found on the Maintain Employment Services Participation screen shown here. And welfare to work program status is displayed for the individual level, and the begin date is the begin date of the status, which is, in this example, registered and mandatory. So this individual would be welfare to work active for the reporting period. In LRS C4, program status is entered and displayed on the welfare to work status list page seen here. However, this information may also be accessed on the case summary page after it has been input. And users add a status by activating the Add Status button on the lower right hand of the screen. So here is the case summary page in LRS C4, where the individual's welfare to work program status may also be found in the box indicated by the arrow and the red box. So now let's look at single parent assistance unit type. So for single parent AUs, this variable differentiates AUs by the children within the family or the assistance unit. So there's three separate groups here, and it's single parent with a child 24 months and younger, single parent with a child 25 months old through 6 years, and single parent without a child under 6 years. And because single parent AUs have different requirements and program options depending on the age of the children, in CalOR, we will be differentiating the single parent AUs using this information. So in CalWIN, single parent assistance unit type will be derived from the household relationship information found on this screen, collect household relationship detail, where in this case, we see that there's a mother and her son, and this information is used to determine the specific AU type for this family. In C4 LRS, while the next screens do not specifically show the logic used to determine the AU composition, it does show where users will be able to find the information needed to determine the single parent AU specifics. So in LRS C4, we need a couple pieces of information. First, to determine if the parent is welfare to work active, and this is found on the welfare to work status list page, shown here, where we see the individual is active. Then information that indicates if the parent is active in CalWORKS, that is found on the eligibility case summary page, seen here. And then finally, to determine the age of the children in the case, information from the case summary page seen here is utilized, and we see that Elton John has a child, Olivia John. Now let's look at the program entry date, or the date that the individual entered the program. If the individual has multiple spells of aid, we're interested only in the most recent spell, and this the way we're looking at it for CalOR. And this information will be used in both the OCAT appraisal completion timeliness rate and the transportation provision timeliness rate. So in CalWIN, the program entry date, or the date that the CalWORKS aid was granted, is not displayed on a screen that's accessible to the user. In CalWIN, for this data element, CalWIN will be using the date that the application status changed from pending to authorized for the most recent CalWORKS spell of aid. In LRS C4, the program entry date will be the date displayed in the beginning date of aid column on the application detail page for the CalWORKS program from the case information tab. So you see the program indicated by the arrow at the top of the page, or kind of the middle of the page, and then the program entry date there at the lower right-hand side in the red box under beginning date of aid. For LRS C4, that will be the program entry date. Finally, let's review the program exit date, and that's the date the individual exited CalWORKS. In CalOR data reporting, all individuals that exited CalWORKS within the measurement period will be reported, and this data point will provide information for a variety of measures, including measures that look at wages and employment, as well as educational completion. The program exit date in CalWIN will be derived from the status date of the discontinuance for the program provided on the collect case summary page, as seen here, where here we see the discontinuance status for the CalWORKS program is reported as April 30th, 2010. In LRS C4, the program exit date will be the discontinued date of the program found here on the case summary page in the case information tab, where the discontinued date is the date in which the program is no longer active. So that wraps it up, and we'll throw it back to Juliana. We'll talk about some future training, other CalOR information, and then we'll be happy to address any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. So with that, we're nearing the end of today's training session. Let's take a quick look at the content that will be covered in the upcoming trainings. On August 6th and 8th, we'll provide a training on the existing reporting measures. These are the measures that utilize EDD and MEDS data. So this includes the employment rate of current CalWORKS individuals, wage progression, post-CalWORKS employment rate, rate of exits with earnings, rate of program reentries, rate of program reentries after exit with earnings, and intergenerational CalWORKs enrollment rate, which is a state-level look only. The training invitations have already gone out, and the information is also posted on the CalOR website. And as a quick reminder, these measures will be included in the first county self-assessment alongside the Phase 1 measures. The Phase 2 measures will be the final training in our performance measure series, but this training will not occur until next year. This will include the OCAT appraisal to next activity timeliness rate, education and skills development access rates, education and skills development utilization rate, child care access rate, HA and HSP access rate, ancillary services access rate, transportation provision timeliness rate, subsidized to unsubsidized employment rate, educational completion rate, home visiting transitions to welfare to work engagement rate, and family stabilization transitions to welfare to work engagement rate. And just as a quick reminder, counties are not required to include these measures in the first county self-assessment. So for additional information, please access the resources that you see listed on your screen. I'd also direct you to ACL 1940. That's a really good resource. It has all sorts of information about the performance measures and data files and data elements. So if you've not taken a look at that yet, please do. Okay, so now we have some time for questions and answers. I'm going to go ahead and mute the phone for just a couple minutes and give you an opportunity to gather your thoughts and submit any questions that you may have in the chat box. And as always, if nothing, pops in your mind right now, but something pops in your mind later, you can feel free to reach out to us at the CalOR inbox, CalOR with the hyphen at dss.ca.gov, and we'll be happy to address any questions that we get in the email inbox. Okay, great. So we've had a couple of questions come in the chat box. So we'll go ahead and read the question and provide a response. And feel free to ask any additional questions as we're going through this. So David is going to go ahead and read the first question for us.
And the first question we received is CalWIN just looking at the relationships of the children Or are they going to look at whether or not the children listed as the participant children are actually part of the AU? And if yes, where is that information pulling from?
So, Calwin, I see that you're on the phone. Are you able to assist with this question?
Good morning. This is Jinko. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So I'm not sure I understand the question, but maybe it'll help if I explain that whatever the household relationship that is being considered for CalWORKs eligibility is what will fulfill that data element of determining the AU type. Does that answer the question, or do you need further clarification?
And maybe it looks like Rosalinda posed that question. So Rosalinda, if you have a follow-up question or clarification, if you could type that out for us. Or if that resolved it, that's great as well. Great. It looks like that addressed it. So thank you, Rosalinda, and thank you, Jinka. And the next question that we have is, how can counties obtain the data identifying the date the application status changed from pending to authorized?
And this is also a question for Calwin.
So the SQL logic that will be developed to obtain that date will be shared with the counties, and when the counties run that SQL themselves, they will be able to review that date.
Great.
And I want to add that the data validation should be a one-time deal when we first implement the SQL that will create that will pull the CalOR data. I'm not sure if counties need to be reviewing that date on a monthly basis. So what I would recommend, and I'll discuss this internally with our Calwin counties, is once we create the SQL, the first month that we run, they can go in and do some sampling of cases to make sure they're satisfied with the date that is being pulled. But I don't see a need for them to keep validating that on an ongoing basis once we implement the report.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Jinko.
Can the county respond if that clarifies the question?
So Rosalinda, if you can just let us know. Yep, looks good. Okay.
So the next question that we have is, will SOGI information be entered for children as well?
No. So the SOGI is for adults only.
All right. Then our next question is, it was mentioned that in CalWin that date aid is granted is not displayed. What about the beginning date of aid tab in the Inquire on Case Information window?
That date reflects the date of the application. It does not reflect the date that the case is authorized and switches from pending to authorized.
Great.
Great, thank you for that clarification. And then our next question is, if a case has a pending status in Welfare to Work, will the case be captured as part of the CalOR data element, or does it need to be active? Our county occasionally leaves Welfare to Work status in pending to prevent diaper allowance issuance.
Can you clarify if this is a C4 or Calaisis county that is asking this?
So the question came in from Kevin McFarland. If you could just let us know what county you're from. You can type it into the chat box. Shasta. So Shasta, is Jinko Shasta one of your counties?
No, it is not.
Okay, so perhaps C4, if you can help with this one. Joel? Joel? Joel, if you're speaking, you may be on mute. Okay, so we'll circle back on that question and see if Joel's able to respond to that in a few moments. He is logged on. So. Oh. Joel? Okay, we'll circle back.
All right. And our next question is, good morning. Would anybody be willing to share? Oh, I'm sorry. So this question has to do with the first set of reports that counties received. And the asker indicated that this might not be the correct or best form to address it. I think Juliana has a couple of things to share.
Yeah, so the question came in about wanting to hear from other counties on their experience from the first set of reports for CalOR. And we're not going to talk about that during today's training session because we want to have that conversation in a forum that allows for counties to kind of have an open line as well. So we do have time slated to talk about that next week on the CalOR forum call. So if you can join us for that call, we can spend as much time as needed on that topic. And the call is Wednesday, the 24th at 11 a.m. Information is on the CalOR website, but we'd be happy to talk about it at that time.
Great. Thank you, Juliana. So that's the last of the questions that we've received so far. We're trying to see whether Joel is still with us on the call to answer that previous question.
We're looking for Great. So the response to the question about the pending status in welfare to work, if it would be included, no, only those in active status. Okay. So that's it. That's it for the questions that we've gotten in thus far. We will provide the written questions and responses online within the coming weeks, so that way you can see it in writing if you're interested. And any additional questions that come up, feel free, like I said earlier, to email the CalOR inbox, and we would be happy to add it to the Q&A from this training that we will publish online. So with that, that's all we have for you today. But before you log off, we do ask that you click on a link in your chat window that will take you to a training evaluation. It has 7 brief questions and should only take a couple of minutes to fill out. That feedback is really useful for us as we continue to develop the CalOR trainings, and we'd love to hear your experience with today's training. I'd also like to note that I hope everyone had a better technical experience with the webinar today than in past webinars. We did switch webinar platforms from Blackboard to GoToWebinar based on all the feedback that we received in the training evaluations and elsewhere. So we're hoping that it was smooth for everyone and will continue to be smooth. So with
Juliana,
that,
this was much better than the Blackboard.
Oh, great.
This was much better than Blackboard.
Thank you. Yes, that's what we're hearing. Thank you. I'm glad. So with that, we're going to close our time here today together. Have a good rest of your Friday, and we look forward to speaking again on August 6th and 8th when we talk about the existing reporting measures, and next Wednesday on the CalOR forum. So thank you.